throughout the day, the government had to reintroduce footage. So we started out with, I want to say 3 of the videos that we saw yesterday. They said they made a small error, that they wanted to reintroduce them as a whole instead of little bits. Not sure about all of that. We start watching the video, and this is Flynn's video where he's recording. Now Flynn has deceased, and he's not there to be cross-examined, and he is narrating this video. So throughout the video, you hear Flynn say some things. He says, deadly force. They said they're gonna use deadly force. Then he says, get the kids out of there. Get the children out of there. Another person next to him says, that's not going to happen. Then a little bit later he says, don't do this. God, oh my God. And so this is pretty, this is what the jury is hearing as they're watching evidence. What this gentleman is saying is not evidence, it's his own narration on this. He is a reporter and he has an agenda. We also had Alex identify Ammon Bundy. Basically, the Bundys are going back on trial.
Yeah, the Bundys were on trial again for probably the first half. We're at an intermission here, just a quick break before we go back for the segment before lunch. The Bundys went back on trial this morning. 3 or 4 videos there where Ammon and Cliven and Ryan Bundy were all identified by the witness. We then went into a short video clip. It's a video clip of Eric Parker on a bridge giving a statement to Michael Flynn. We were a little bit concerned about that because, if we're honest, Eric's a little bit legally exposed on this issue. They're going to have to bring this up in closing arguments and when they present their case. It could have gone a lot worse than it did. It was a very short video clip in the middle of the continued prosecution of the Bundys, so we felt pretty good about that.
Alex then does point out Eric in the courtroom and that he knows him from that. The video is on YouTube, and it's not something new that we did not know about. At this point in the video, one of the points he says he's not with Flynn anymore, but he could see where Flynn is. Flynn goes back down in the wash. He's not with him, but he can see where he's at from the bridge. All of the defendants object to this because he can't say that it's from the same perspective, but the judge allows it. In that part of the video, Ammon says that the BLM wanted 5 days to get out and they were not going to agree to those terms. He's talking about the meeting that they have when they go over the gate and talk with Tom Roberts and the BLM. He says, we did not accept these terms, so the BLM said they would take 30 to 40 minutes to leave and was telling the crowd to back up and give them time to leave.
The continued issue with Ellis's testimony here is that he was not at the same vantage point of Michael Flynn for most of these videos. At some points he was 100 or more yards away, and defense attorneys are arguing he didn't make this video, he wasn't there, and the judge is saying, well, his vantage point goes to the weight of the evidence, not to the authenticity. So they're allowing someone who didn't make the video, who wasn't standing in the same place, to essentially say, well, from that wide angle of view, from the northbound bridge, which is where he stood most of the time, Mr. Flynn's footage, some of it happens down in the wash, as we discussed before, post number 2 at the gate, 100 yards at least. They're allowing this video evidence as if Ellis was there. They're saying it just goes to the weight of the evidence, not to the authenticity. So defense attorneys have objected to every single piece of evidence, and every one of them has been overruled, and these videos are continually admitted into evidence.
Then we go into the cross-examination. Tomasi started, that's Stephen Stewart's lawyer. He starts with, you met Flynn at a protest in 2013. It was a protest about government shutdown, possibly about the
there's the debt
funding.
Debt ceiling issue. He apparently organized a protest up in St. George, Utah that had to do with a debt ceiling issue. So they were trying to make the point that maybe he went to the Bundy Ranch for a different purpose than Mike Flynn. Maybe, and the next logical conclusion was maybe these defendants went to the Bundy Ranch for some other issue besides, Cliven Bundy's cattle. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Wasn't sure.
As soon as he says that he organized that protest, Stephen Myrie objected. Relevance, it was allowed. The next question was, did you know why my client was at the protest? There was an objection that was not, it was sustained, so he could not continue. Do you believe some of the guys carrying guns believed it was their right to? There was an objection. Alex said that Cliven had told them to.
That was a key issue. We haven't seen that in evidence yet. I've never seen that in any of the evidence that's been presented. This gentleman said, the question was, do you believe that they were there carrying weapons because that was their right? And he said, well, that and Cliven told them to carry guns. I've never heard of Cliven say that. I've never seen that. You scoured the bowels of the internet looking for videos on this issue. I have never heard Cliven Bundy say, take your guns and go get my cattle. There were no objections to that. I think all of us were pretty shocked. There were no objections to that testimony.
There was objection because he didn't even get to finish what he said about Cliven, and there was an objection.
There were also objections right after that. There is something in an FBI report that this young man gave. He was interviewed by the FBI in 2015. There is something in that report that creates an impeachable situation in his current testimony. There is something that he has said that has contradicted what he has said in sworn testimony on the stand. And Stephen Tanasi for Stephen Stewart, he cannot get to that piece of evidence. As many times as he tried, in as many ways as he tried, U.S. attorneys objected to everyone, and they were able to keep him from being able to introduce this sworn statement that he gave to the FBI. There's something in there, we don't know what it is.
Then he went back to say, you were up on the bridge, and then you went down into the wash with Mr. Flynn. And he said yes, and then he said, okay, at that point your back was to the bridge. And that's when he finished his questioning, and then we went to Todd Engel. Had Mr. Ellis talk about protesters, because as we know, they're not calling this a protest. So he had him talk about protesting quite a bit, calling them protesters. He said after he took us to a clip and played the clip, and he said, after you heard that lady, did you hear that lady, what she said? And she said, what is it that she said? That's not the BLM. They're not supposed to be down here. And then he was asked if that was true, and he said, no, that's not true. What the sheriff had said was that he needed to talk to Cliven on the stage afterwards. He didn't say the BLM was leaving. He said he needed to have a conversation with Cliven. So basically, what we have here is this witness has been practicing for this with the prosecution for some time, because, you know, once again, that truck picture was brought up, the park rangers with the weapons. Alex says multiple times, yes, he did see weapons trained on the protesters, but he didn't see that truck. They show pictures, Todd brings up the pictures, here's the truck. Do you recognize the truck from this picture? He says, no, I never saw that truck. So every witness that has come in has declined from seeing this truck. I mean, one of the witnesses was 30 yards from the truck.
This is the phantom truck of the Bundy Ranch protest. It absolutely is. Two federal agents do not remember seeing this vehicle with agents with their weapons pointed at protesters. One agent was less than 30 feet away from it. He has no recollection of seeing that truck. And this person who stood on the northbound bridge and was able to see his, his fellow reporter all the way down the wash, he wasn't somehow able to see this vehicle with weapons pointed protesters.
But yeah, we saw this truck on the leaked video, so.
We have seen this. There's pictures of this. We'll try to put it in the comments. It's a blue Chevy pickup. It's got 4 doors, and it's surrounded by agents, and they're pointing weapons at people. Todd Engel is, by the way, he is still the rock star of pro se representation. Today, he got this witness not only to admit that the BLM was authorized to use lethal force. Todd Engel asked him specifically, did the BLM say they were going to use lethal force? That they were going to do it, and the witness said that is correct. And I think that's huge, because up until now, people have said they were authorized to use lethal force. This witness is saying that the BLM said they were going to use lethal force. And I think that's going to help us out.
Right before we left, the last thing that was brought in, and I believe we're at Todd Leventhal now.
Correct.
He brought up a article that Alex did. What was the article called?
United Police States of America.
And in that article, he says something other than what he said. He said a contradicting statement that completely contradicts his statements today on the testifying.
Yeah, it was in regards to Carol Bundy and standing in front of a vehicle.
That was actually Margaret Houston.
Margaret
who
Houston,
he's
not
referring.
Carol Bundy.
He
but
doesn't know who she is.
who she is. And they have his article that he wrote, and it's about to be admitted in, or it's about to be shown to him so he can remember what his comments in that article was. But the government immediately was like, well, we want to see it first. And so they showed it to them and let us out for break. So we're going to go back inside and see if this piece of evidence is going to be allowed in.
Sweet.
Awesome,
Thank you.
thanks, Andrea. Thanks.